After the release of FNAF 4, an image would be uploaded to scottgames.com, filled with the various animatronics we had encountered throughout the games up to that point, except the Phantoms, cause them I guess, with the text saying thank you at the top. At the time, many people believed this to be the final goodbye to the series, a heartwarming picture of all the characters we had grown to fear. But shortly after, fans would start to notice as the Indo behind Toy Freddy had morphed into a cuter version of itself, with day after day other animatronics following the Indo's footsteps. Confused at the time, fans would swarm the site daily to see what animatronics would be turned into cute amalgamations of themselves, or just be added in, until one day, the thank you text started to fade, slowly being replaced with a title, until we hit our final image, showing off our bright and colorful cast of characters with the title revealed to be FNAF World. Now, there is a lot to unpack with this game, with the initial game being rushed out of production, upsetting a lot of fans when the game wasn't what was expected, leading Scott to decide to mass refund the game and re-release the finished product to the public for free. This game has a lot of mixed reception among the fans, with sides either adoring it or wishing it didn't exist. Especially seeing that this game is nothing like what came before in this FNAF series, as it ditched the dark and sinister sit and survive gameplay, instead opting to be, on the surface, a bright and cheerful RPG title where, as your own cast of animatronics, you must fight enemies to save your untitled animatronic village. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, I like this game. Not only was it a ton of fun when I played it as a kid, but FNAF World was the first game I had played on my Twitch stream where I had gotten my first real viewer. And so it does hold a special place in my heart. But I'm not just here to recount my love for this game to you. In fact, I'm here on important business to finally fit FNAF World into the narrative of Five Nights at Freddy's and explain how it might very well be the key piece we have been missing to explain the lore of the newer Steel Wool titles. However, before I start, you know the drill. I have my first giveaway going on where I'm giving out 3 $20 Visa gift cards once I reach full partner status here on YouTube. And all you have to do to enter is join my Discord server, link in the description, where once I hit that YouTube partner status, we'll be drawing for the winners. And right now, I'm currently sitting at 1,327 hours. So join while there's still time, and let's get into this video. It's still all up to you, but now even more so, and with less hope. Grants. With how controversial and different FNAF World was, it was no surprise when people had written off the series under a semi-common understanding that FNAF World was its own separate continuity, with fans having no idea how or where to fit it into their timelines. Even after Scott, during an interview with Dawko, had confirmed that FNAF World was 100% canon.
Obviously for fun and not tried to somehow tie it in to a canon game, and that's obvious to me now, but like I'm saying, like I was saying, I wasn't.
Many fans were still hesitant to try and fit it into any timeline they were making because how could this be considered canon? It's just too different. Well, let's take a step back and talk about what we know. Working off of Dual Process's theory, who have made a wonderful timeline that I highly suggest you watch as it provides a fresh take on the Scott Cawthon era games, with very interesting points, link below. They have described FNAF World as the events leading to Happiest Day, where the crying child is set free. However, in the video they couldn't pin when it was, more on that later. We also learned from FNAF, from 2 of his videos, again, link below, that a chip and baby that we take in Sister Location was not accounted for until we see it show up in a Help Wanted 2 minigame, where that chip is implanted into Helpy's brain. Mr. John FNAF himself theorized that the chip was the Mimic. And in FNAF World, we have a variety of chips we collect that provide you with different gameplay boosts. One of them you collect after pushing yourself through a certain grave, passing through a carnival, and on top of some boards in the mine. This chip being Auto Mimic. You can see where I'm going with this. This chip, when it's activated, brings out a little yellow smiling blob with an antenna that, when you use a move, spawns in a green virtual Freddy that mimics your attacks. This chip isn't the only place you can see this mimic, however, as this is an ability 3 other characters can temporarily spawn in through the Mimic Ball move. These characters being Fredbear, RXQ, and strangely enough, the paper pals. We also know that FNAF World has a variety of endings, such as the clock ending, which leads us to Happiest Day, giving us a trophy of Crying Child, not, well, crying. But another being one where if we go too deep within the code of the game, we meet Old Man Consequences, who tells us we're stuck, granting us a trophy of Freddy. However, this is not the only way to get this ending. Where in Ultimate Custom Night, if you use your death coin on Old Man Consequences, you are sent back to the same scene of the Red Lake, where upon talking to him, we are told to rest our soul and leave the demon to his demons. Something linked to the fire of FNAF 6 as we hear William plea through distorted audio from what would seem to maybe be 3 levels too deep. Giving us our trophy in FNAF World. It's also important to note that Dual Process theorized that Old Man Consequences could be Henry. We also know that FNAF World had an update where minigames had been added in where we would get the strict coding of more characters we have to save, learning them to be in games made by a man who claims to have made Baby.
The show will begin momentarily. Everyone, please stay in your seats.
Before getting killed by her. More on him later. And finally, we know that in the vast world, sometimes it's hard to navigate, so thankfully we have a map to help. Oh my god! Is that a brain? I'm gonna be sick! But now that we have our ingredients, wrong channel. Well, if I'm going to be making theories, I need my own little tagline. I have been talking about puzzles a lot. So now that we have our pieces, let's put this puzzle together. In the timeline, I would argue that FNAF World runs parallel to the events of Ultimate Custom Night. And I would further argue that both of these titles are games created by Charlie and Michael within another set of games respectively. We know that FNAF World is very forthcoming about its status as a game, as we're constantly reminded about the code of characters and objects in said game, with them also specifically mentioning that the Update 2 minigames are games using characters' recycled code. We also know that whoever this guy is was the creator of these games, one of them being FNAF 57, Freddy in Space. This is important because if you remember, we meet the creator of the game inside of the title, a Cawthon lookalike that talks about the crazed directions he plans to take the series. But this isn't the only time we see this creator. Recall the opening segment of Help Wanted, where we are introduced to the game designer of the in-universe FNAF games, a Cawthon lookalike. We also learn in Help Wanted that this creator was hired to create these games. However, in the Tales from the Pizzaplex book, Haps, we learn in one of the titles, Help Wanted, of a character named Steve Snodgrass, who was forced into making these games by mind manipulation, driving this character insane throughout the story until he finishes them only to be stabbed in the chest repeatedly by his fake robot wife. This could be exactly what we're seeing here at the end of Update 2. No one has been able to place their thumb on exactly who this character is because we know that the creator of Baby the animatronic didn't die to her. But that's because this isn't the creator of Baby, this is Steve Snodgrass, the indie developer who created the in-universe FNAF games, being driven crazy by whatever manipulation Fazbear Entertainment had used. And in FNAF 6, where do some of the biggest lore reveals happen? In the different games we play, Steve's games, that we buy for our establishment. So if we're to believe that Ultimate Custom Night takes place during the FNAF 6 fire because of the Old Man Consequences Easter egg, where we hear William Afton screaming out to be saved, then we know that FNAF World has to be happening at the same time, as the Old Man Consequences Easter egg also provides you with the trophy ending in FNAF World, proving that both of these are games. Games, I would argue, that take place in the code of Steve's games. We know that Remnant and Agony have a hard time moving on, and we can see both of these elements in play here, whether it be Michael's agony keeping William Afton trapped in the purgatory of Ultimate Custom Night, or how Charlie's remnant is still trying to free the crying child through FNAF World, having Cassidy put the puzzle pieces together to unlock the box where he could finally reunite with his body and have his happiest day. However, seeing that the box is only in the files and never actually used in the game, I'd argue that the box was never opened, keeping all the remnant trapped in the code. We also have one more instance of a soul, agony, or remnant that isn't free yet. Steve himself, who within this heavily infected code relives his death, a memory trapped within a cycle. Now, this isn't where the story ends, as there is one more huge piece of the puzzle I have yet to place. We know from what I have mentioned earlier that we have a mimic chip within the code of FNAF World, and from the VHS tapes within Help Wanted, we know that Fazbear Entertainment had given the programmers code to use to try to speed up the creation of Help Wanted. The code that introduced Glitch Trap, or as we now know him, the Mimic, into the system. So I'm willing to argue that FNAF World and Ultimate Custom Nights were the game's codes used in the creation of Help Wanted that would then be introduced to the system in Security Breach, not only introducing the Mimic into the system, but also the remaining remnant and agony trapped within the code. This is why there seems to be so many instances of spirits from before in the Pizzaplex, such as the Night Marion dolls, Princess Quest, and Freddy's Ark in Security Breach. Not only was the building built over the top of the FNAF 6 location, but the games they were all trapped in is now the main storytelling program running throughout the Pizzaplex's systems, something we learn about in the Storyteller in Tales of the Pizzaplex. And I hear what you're saying.
That code was ran through a huge baobab tree in the center of the Pizzaplex, something we never run into in Security Breach.
But yet, we do see this exact tree. In Ruin, there is one interesting area we run through, being rooms that store the code of the Pizzaplex. Now, when we're in these rooms, we're forced to keep our Vanny mask on. But even still, look at what is in the center of this room. A sturdy base with branches that looks exactly like a baobab tree, with the surrounding rooms being servers for the entire Pizzaplex. This is where our Mimic program was uploaded. This is what connects not only FNAF World to Security Breach, but even the books to our mainline continuity to some degree. Only hitch is, it wasn't a tiger head, but a Helpy one. So, to sum everything up into a nice little package, Steve, forced to make games for Fazbear Entertainment, pours his agony into these titles before getting murdered. And Michael, looking to buy Freddy-themed games, finds Steve's titles and implemented them into the FNAF 6 location. Then one day, when all the animatronics are brought to the pizzeria and the place goes up in flames, a couple souls would not be content in moving on just yet. Michael, filled with agony, creates a purgatory within the coding for his father, Ultimate Custom Night. And Charlie's remnant, still wanting to bring Cassidy their happiest day, creates FNAF World, where somewhere trapped in the code is the Mimic program that along our time playing, we let out, where it would learn everything about William through Steve's games and the memories trapped within the code of the games as it played along. Until one day when Fazbear Entertainment LLC stumble upon the ruins and find active code in Helpy, who would have been connected to the pizzeria's system, which also contains the answer to their problems, named the Mimic, being implemented into Help Wanted, scattering the remnant and agony in the game and releasing the Glitch Trap virus. Until one day, when the Mimic is put into the baobab tree we see in Ruin, further scattering the remnant and the agony of these souls, leaving Charlie to search through her dolls for the still scattered pieces of the crying child, Michael to possibly possess Freddy, or it could be Old Man Consequences, who's theorized to be Henry, Elizabeth to be scattered throughout the baby plushes, and it leaves Glitch Trap, who may have combined with Afton to try and find a body to continue mimicking Afton's behaviors. Now, obviously the ending there was a bit shaky, as it's hard to pinpoint exactly what pieces go where when it comes to the Pizzaplex itself, leaving me to speculation. Editing Austin really quick popping in to say that this might be the reason in Help Wanted 2 why we collect the poppets that are given to us by Glitch Trap, because these are the remaining pieces of remnant from FNAF World. And as we speculate, we play as Jeremy, who is in the coding of training simulators, so being in the code would be the best way to get that remnant out. Anyways, back to the regular video. But when it comes to the placement of FNAF World and claiming that the man within Update 2 is our indie developer, I'm fairly confident in those points, seeing as there is no one that can be properly put into the place of this desk guy, and knowing the mimic virus was taken from the code, it would only make sense that the code would be the same as the only instance where we, the players, see it, being in FNAF World. But tell me what you think. Do you think this has been the answer we've all been waiting for with FNAF World? Do you believe this is Steve Snodgrass? Or do you have a better theory? Please let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, I highly suggest subscribing. Something free for you that would help me in making this a career to entertain y'all. But with all that said, this is the end of today's video. If you've enjoyed it and want more, the end card should have my other video on FNAF where I explain why it still matters. That I think is very important to watch with FNAF's current iterations. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.